Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero RPG on Earth, also known as the Continuum Chronicles. As always, I'm your host, Chris Kent, the Game Master. And before we get into today's adventure, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell for notifications, and as always, be sure to leave us a comment as that really helps out with the YouTube algorithm. With all that said, let's dive in. Prologue to today's story takes place in the 1940s when a German soldier overheard the Savannah family say the word Savannah to copy the powers of Shazam. So he said Savannah and became Blitzkrieg, an evil counterpart to Captain Marvel. Which brings us to the main plot today's game. Blitzkrieg, the aforementioned evil Captain Marvel, has teamed up with Ubermensch, who is basically an evil version of Superman created by cloning the DNA of Kara Zor-El. And these two guys are being a problem. So they get the attention of the superheroes, who, by the way, we ran this at a local comic book store, and the player characters for this game consisted of Bucky, aka James Buchanan Barnes, Captain America, aka Steve Rogers, Dr. Fate, who in our game now is Inza Kramer Nelson, the widow of the original Dr. Fate who died in an earlier adventure, The Flash, Jay Garrick, Green Lantern, Alan Scott, Howard Stark, father of Iron Man, Human Torch, Jim Hammond, The Spectre, Jim Corrigan, Spitfire, Jacqueline Fallsworth, The Submariner, Namor McKenzie, Superman Blue, Clark Kent, and Superman Red, who's the hero formerly known as Dagda, Beowulf, King Arthur, and Oberon. Koro, aka Thomas Raymond, Uncle Sam, who is the avatar of America itself, Union Jack, aka Brian Fallsworth, and Wonder Woman, aka Diana Prince. Superman Red punches Blitzkrieg, and it's his strength of 50 versus Blitzkrieg's body of 28. Superman Red does 22 points of damage, taking Blitzkrieg's body down to a 6 in one hit. Superman Blue punches Ubermensch, doing 17 points of damage to his counterpart. Blitzkrieg hits Superman Red, doing 9 points of damage. There are also a ton of ordinary German soldiers on the map, and they are each armed with high-tech diesel punk weapons that Hydra gave them. So the other supers attack the Germans and take them out. Superman Red punches Blitzkrieg again, doing another 22 points of damage, taking Blitzkrieg's body of 6 down to a negative 16. Superman Red and Superman Blue have this sort of good cop, bad cop thing going on. So Superman Red is more comfortable entering killing combat than Superman Blue is. Speaking of which, Superman Blue punches Ubermensch, doing another 17 points of damage to the evil clone. So the Ubermensch only has 6 hit points left out of his original body of 40. So Ubermensch flies to where he was created. Green Lantern makes a platform for the non-flying heroes to get on, and then the entire party follows Ubermensch to what looks like an Axis airfield that the Allies already bombed and occupied. But when they get there, the guys who are wearing the uniforms of the Allied forces open fire on the heroes using these Hydra guns. The female Dr. Fate determines that these are Germans who killed Americans and are wearing the uniforms of the dead. Likewise, what seems like an abandoned facility is anything but. This is all camouflage. So again, the heroes fight the thugs outside while taking damage from their weird ray guns. Meanwhile, Ubermensch staggers into what on the outside looks like a beat up old aircraft hangar, but on the inside, it is a state of the art Hydra lab. Arnim Zola yells at Ubermensch, telling him he was a fool to come here. Ubermensch begs Zola to fix what's wrong with him, but before he can, the heroes kick down the door. A German soldier by the name of Helmut Gruller was sitting at a table, smoking a cigarette and playing cards. As soon as he sees the heroes enter the cloning facility, he drops his cards and runs towards his Iron Cross armor that is against the wall. The Iron Cross armor looks suspiciously like what the players would recognize as the War Machine armor. But the Iron Cross armor, as the name implies, has an iron cross on the chest. Also here is Per Degaton, a German time traveler. Next to the Iron Cross armor is Per Degaton's time machine, also known as Die Glock. We leave it open to player interpretation if the reason why the Iron Cross armor exists in the 1940s is because Per Degaton brought information about Iron Man back in time from the future. Speaking of Iron Man, the father of Tony Stark is here, and on Howard Stark's turn, he shoots Helmut Gruller in the head. Howard Stark was played by Chris Cross, who rolled a critical success. With Gruller dead, it's Howard Stark who gets inside the Iron Cross armor and powers it up, which is good because Arnim Zola pulls a lever and all of these glass tubes open, revealing more clones created from the DNA of Kara Zor-El. A bunch of blonde-haired, blue-eyed supermen prepare to attack. Zola pulls another lever, which floods the room with artificial yellow sun radiation. So that means that every round, the army of Supermen get tougher and tougher. It also means that every round that Clark Kent is in here, he gets closer to his Silver Age strength levels too. Dr. Fate and the Spectre multi-attack as many Supermen as possible, taking advantage of their lost vulnerability to magic attacks. What follows, by the way, was hours of gaming. This fight literally took all night long, and one by one, various players had to leave because it was getting so late. It was after midnight, and the remaining evil Supermen were reaching full strength. There were enough of them that most of the heroes by now had been knocked out. Superman Red knocked out tons of these clones. At one point in the fight, as he's being team attacked by a bunch of clones, he comments that he sure could use Excalibur and its scabbard right about now. Both went missing around the time of his funeral, back in the days of Camelot. The sword can cut through anything, slicing between atoms, while the scabbard makes the wearer immune to damage. Per Degaton is still here, pinned down, unable to get to his time machine. Interestingly enough, through that whole fight that lasted all night long, every time someone attacked Per Degaton, they got a critical failure and missed him. And about half the time that Per Degaton would shoot a hero, he'd get a critical success, doing extra damage. So the heroes really had it out for him at this point. So Green Lantern, aka Alan Scott, who was played by Isaac Engelhorn, puts a glowing green bubble around Per Degaton, which he thinks is a force field keeping him from shooting any more heroes. But in actuality, what Green Lantern is doing is suffocating the villain. Without enough air to keep breathing, eventually Per Degaton passes out. And Howard Stark and Alan Scott get to the time machine. Alan Scott, for those who don't know, is an engineer, and Stark is a genius. So they figure out the controls pretty quick, and the time machine vanishes. They go back in time to King Arthur's funeral. They watch Morgan Le Fay and her many sisters take Arthur out to sea, where they sail west towards Paradise Island and the purple ray that will heal King Arthur's wounds. The people of Camelot see the Iron Cross armor, and they think that Howard Stark is a knight. And when they see the Iron Cross logo itself, they think of him and Green Lantern as good guys. Howard Stark retrieves Excalibur in its scabbard, but the people of Camelot ask what he's doing. So he explains that he and Alan came from the future, and that in the future, King Arthur is alive and well, but he really needs Excalibur in its scabbard. People are shocked by this. And with that, the heroes vanish in the time machine. And so was born the myth of the once and future king, that Arthur would return one day. Back in the 1940s, Die Glock materializes in the cloning lab, where the battle is still underway. The heroes give Superman Red the scabbard, and he attaches it to his belt, making him immune to harm. So from there on out, he kills clones left and right. Each clone's body is reduced to 4 APs, by the way, when he attacks them with Excalibur, because technically it's a magic item. Their surviving villains, like Arnim Zola and Perdegaton, are turned over to the American and British forces. And Alan Scott uses his Omnipower to heal the knocked out heroes and get them up and going again. Which brings us to our epilogue. There are many Martians on Earth disguised as human beings. One of them is an evil white Martian named Ben Blanks, who has disguised himself as a Russian man named Venomin Blankov. Blankov is fast becoming a war hero and is one of Stalin's most trusted and highly decorated men. And he's not the only one. Every day, there are more and more Martians on Earth. And in many cases, they shapeshift into some sort of horrible monster, and then they eat the bodies of the dead on the battlefields, only to later assume the identity of that person and take their place in society. And after the war, many of these so-called war heroes enter the political arena, where they climb the social ladder and attain positions of great power. But that's a story for another day. We hope you enjoyed today's adventure. If so, as always, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell for notifications, and be sure to leave us a comment, as that really helps out with the YouTube algorithm. From all of us here at the longest running superhero role-playing game on Earth, we hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you in the next adventure. Bye.